Hey folks, Colin here from Sumthins Recording, and today I want to show you how to mix drums faster using top-down mixing. We're going to be going over top-down mixing on drums today, but before we dive in, if you are ready to go a little bit deeper into the mixing process as a whole and really start to hone your workflow as an engineer, then I have just the thing for you. It is my 7-step mixing checklist, and it's just a simple PDF that will walk you through the entire mixing process step by step to help you get professional and radio ready mixes without any more of the hassle and without any more of the guesswork. It is a completely free guide, and you can download it below using the link in the video description. Now let's jump in here and look at top-down mixing and mixing drums faster. To start here, let me play you what these drums sound like. So these are raw recorded drums. We just finished recording these drums here. Just got a couple things on the drums here. A little bit of limiting on the kick drum, a little bit of limiting on the snare drum, and then the plugins from recording are still on for the overheads and room mics. So the mic modeler is still on the overheads, and then the virtual mix rack with the mic modeler is still on the room mic as well. So it's still running through the slate mic because that's the room mic that's up in the drum room. So that is still on the room mic as well. The only other thing running that wasn't recorded that's added in my mixing is the virtual room mic here. So I'm just sending all of my drums here to the Bricasti and I pull that up. That's my kind of virtual stereo room mic. Other than that, these are raw recorded drums here. So let me solo up the drums and play you what these sound like. And then we're going to talk about how we can get our drum mix going faster by starting on the drum bus. So doing some top-down mixing here. But here are the raw recorded drums as they stand in the mix. So it's a good sounding kit, excuse me, recorded really well. We got a lot of nice punch on our kick, a lot of low end weight. Our snare drum has some nice crack to it. Cymbals are sounding pretty smooth. They're not harsh or anything. So it's a good sounding kit here, and we get a little bit of extra room ambience from the Bricasti there. So how can we get our drum mix going much faster without having to jump in here, EQ our kick drum, compress our kick drum, do EQ some surgical work on our snare and our toms, start rolling stuff off on our overheads and rooms? How can we get our drums in a better place in a couple moves here? The way we can do that is by employing top-down mixing. And what that means is we're starting on the bus rather than on the individual tracks. So we'll mix our drums first on the drum bus and then go in and do anything that we need to on the actual spot mics. So what we're going to do here is I'm going to pull in the Fat Channel plugin here on our drum bus. Now what I think I want to start with is some compression. But actually before we do that, let's do a little EQ beforehand as well. So we'll throw an EQ here on the front end and do a little roll off on our drums here. Well, actually, we can do that on the Fat Channel. I always forget that the Fat Channel here has the high pass filter section. So let's throw this up here. We'll get a little high pass going, and then we'll jump into our compression on our drums here. Right there's feeling pretty good to me. I'm usually sitting around 30, 35 hertz doing a high pass on kick drum or doing a high pass on drums as a whole. I don't want to cut up too much into the sub area on the kick drum that will start losing too much weight there on our kick drum. But that's sounding good, cleaning up our kit a little bit as a whole and tightening up our low end. Let's switch over here now and do some compression. I'm usually between the Brit comp and the classic comp, so between like an SSL bus compressor and a Neve 33609. Let's do the Brit comp here. So this is kind of an SSL style bus compressor. We'll go 30 millisecond attack, 100 millisecond release. So the slowest attack here, that way we're letting the transients pop through on our kick drum and our snare drum. We don't want to squash any of that. We want to lose any attack. And then our release will go fastest here at 100 milliseconds. That way it lets go before our next kick or our snare hit. We're going to go the gentlest setting on the ratio because we're not going to do too much here, just a little bit of compression to kind of glue our kit together as a whole. We don't need any makeup gain yet. Let's pull our threshold down and see what we can get here. That's sounding good there. So a little bit of gluing together on the kit. We lose a little bit of low end power in the sub area. That's okay. We can add a little bit back here with EQ, but that starts to tighten up our kit a little bit and kind of hold everything together while emphasizing the attack a little bit, that's the nice thing you get from using an SSL style compressor or a bus compressor like this. It gives you a little bit more on the attack. I'm going to check it one more time and see if I need to go a little bit gentler with it, but it's sounding pretty good at the moment. No, that's feeling pretty good to me right there. We're getting just the nice amount of attack that I want on the kick drum without losing too much of the low end here. Now, EQ-wise, I'm not quite sure what I want to reach for. There's a couple different things that I like here. I love the passive EQ for adding low end on kick drum, but I want to add a little bit on the toms too. So let's go for this Neve style EQ here. And we'll go 110 on the low end. That way, as we pull this up, we'll bring up the nice end, the nice area of the low end without going too far into like the low mid area. So we'll get a little boost on our toms here as well as on our kick drum. And it might bleed up a little bit into the low end of the snare too, which is really, really nice. Here, we could probably pull down some of this 360 area to trim out some of the fat on our drums here in the low mid area. Now for crack here, I probably want to do either 3 or 7, and then we'll see what we can get by pulling up the top end here. So let's get to work here with this EQ. So first off here, a nice cut in the low mids here. We lose a little bit of the fundamental on the snare drum. I'm not too worried about that at the moment. That's always something we can emphasize when we do go in to work on the spot mics, but we might get some of that back, some of the power back as we boost top end here and the low end back here. We'll get a little bit lower than the fundamental on our snare drum, bring up that lower octave. The next thing I want to do is kind of get some top end in here. So let's go for this top end. Okay, that's starting to sound pretty good to me. It's starting to sound pretty solid. We already had a nice bit of low end coming from our kick drum, which is really, really nice there. So I only pushed up about a dB and a half here at 110. So it gets a little bit ringy boosting this high. That's okay. We're getting some good low end energy there. About a 6 dB boost up here on the high frequencies. When you're boosting the top end on the kit as a whole, you really want to listen to the cymbals. That's what I was focusing on. You saw I dialed it all the way up and then slowly dialed it back till I felt the cymbals were at a nice smooth point, and we're getting some top end click on our kick drum and some top end air on our snare drum as well. Here at this 3.2K, again, I dialed it up and dialed it back till I felt I was getting the nice kind of high mid click on the kick drum and that nice crack on the snare drum. I threw in the limiter and dialed it back till it's like just touching everything. Feels like it kind of holds everything down a little bit. Let's hear how everything's sounding as a whole. So we'll A/B the whole fat channel here. So it's compression, EQ, and then just a touch of limiting on the end here. Let's see what our drum bus processing is doing here as a whole. Our drums are already at a much, much better starting point to be inside this mix than before. All we're doing here is a couple little moves on our drum bus, and our drums already sound much more closer to being finished than if we were to go in and just do this processing on the kick or just do this processing on the snare drum. By just treating the drums as one instrument overall, we get a little bit closer to a finished mix than if we go in and work on every microphone individually before doing the drums as a whole. Now, of course, we would still have to go in and do a couple little tweaks on the snare drum, on the kick drum, maybe pull out a little bit more low mids on the overheads, but our drums are already at a better starting point than they were before by doing a little bit of processing on the drum bus. And this is nice as you're going along, that you can throw the drums in the mix and they sound closer to a finished mix point than they do if you have to go in and do a little bit of work on your kick drum, a little bit of work on the snare drum. It's nice to tuck these in the mix and you can move on and then go back and tweak as you're working through your entire mix. So this is one way here you can mix your drums faster employing top-down mixing. So I'm doing a little bit of work on the bus as a whole rather than going in and starting on the individual mics. I hope that was helpful for you. As I mentioned at the beginning of the video, if you are ready to take your mixes to the next level and really start dialing in your workflow as an engineer, then I have just the tool for you, and it is completely free. It's my 7-step mixing checklist, and you can download it below to start creating more professional mixes in less time. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.